Hi, I'm Eddie Capparucci, and welcome to another edition of Getting to the Other Side. And we're helping couples to navigate the road to recovery. It's a program that's designed for those who have been struggling with sexual addiction or pornography addiction, as well as their partners who are dealing with the betrayal, to navigate that road of recovery and to bring them to a place that offers healing, forgiveness, and hope for a new beginning. So today we have a really interesting program, an interesting topic, and that is, when do you re-engage? It's a question I hear very often from people who come into the office. It's like, how do you do this, especially in the early stages of what's going on? And it's a tricky question because basically it's different. The answer is different for every couple in what they're going, because everybody's situation is rather unique. So there's no real set answer. So I'm going to do a program about something that I really can't give you a definitive answer about, but yet I hope I'm going to give you enough insight that is going to be able to help you, as we said, navigate during this road. We look at it first from the idea of reconnecting too soon. And I see this issue quite often, especially from people who come to me because they've already been to a pastor or they've been to another counselor. And part of the advice they've been given is, hey, you know what? We need to start doing marriage counseling so you guys can reconnect. That's difficult because, if I tell everyone, marriage counseling is about bringing people together. At that moment, especially in the early stages of discovery, the last thing the person who's been betrayed wants is to reconnect. And actually doing that so early is going to bring up a whole litany of other issues. It's interesting. I had a client in here a few weeks ago, and she was, telling me about this. They went and sat with a pastoral counselor. And again, I'm not beating up pastoral counselors. But his advice, the first session was, you really need to be nicer to him. Okay. Well, all you're doing is you're creating more distance with all your questions and bombarding him and everything like that. Again, obviously not understanding the idea that the woman had been traumatized by it. I remember another situation where a married woman who was in a physician in a counselor's office, and of course she was very, very emotional. She was very upset. The discovery was just 2 days earlier, and the counselor turned to her and said, "You know what? If I was married to a woman as emotional as you, I probably would have turned to another woman for comfort also." I mean, now here's someone who's already traumatized, who has just been re-traumatized. Because what you're doing is you're giving this impression that there's something wrong with you. It's your fault that he's here. So it's really careful. You need to be very cautious about when you're involved in something like this. And hopefully for those of you who, when you get to the other side and you can be advocates out there for others who, are starting to see this, you can teach them about the idea that, you need to make sure you're sitting in front of people who understand what you're really going through. I mean, I understand what people are going through. I've been in this circumstance before on the side of the person who's been, the betrayer. And, to have that insight is very, very helpful. But again, if we do it too soon, we try to bring a couple together too soon, what you're going to see is at some point, that pain that the person's been betrayed is going to start leaking out. It's going to leak out. It may become even in a more passive aggressive manner because it hasn't been resolved. It hasn't been fully processed. So therefore, even as you push it away, you're suppressing it, you're not repressing it, it's there, but you're pushing it away, it's going to come out at some point. Another thing it could do, it can result later on in ways of depression or other illnesses, because what's happening, although we're making life good, all right, we're going to get through this together, but under the surface, there's that anxiety and that anxiousness because many things haven't been answered yet. Many things haven't been resolved, including the full grieving process. And that's part of what needs to go on here with all of it. So therefore, too soon can bring on a litany of different situations. However, starting to re-engage and reconnect too late is also a very big issue. And in fact, it's something that we probably have more of a problem dealing with than anything else. It is the spouse who has been betrayed can't move, even though those who have betrayed have done all the work or doing the work that is needed. They're making changes. They're making really good insights. However, what happens is if you don't start to move, you do not see those changes. You can't fully appreciate what a person has done to make it so that they are trying to make you feel safe. So it's the whole fear. There's the fear that, you know what, I can't let him or her out of the box. And when I talk about putting someone in a box, it's like all these restrictions of things. Like, for example, we had a couple who he had 2 liaisons when he was traveling on business. And they were both one-night stands. And she said, look, you know what, you need to leave your job because I don't want you traveling. I'm like, okay, I could understand that because what we're trying to do at the beginning is always keep a woman's anxiety down as much as possible by giving her as much security as we can in whatever needs to be done. I've seen people who've had to sell their cars. I know one couple who had to sell their house because he had bought somebody in there. So whatever needs to be done is okay. But so he did. He quit, and then he found another job, and it didn't require travel, but it wasn't something that was working out well for him. So they actually let him go. So now what he did was he got into a process where he's trying to look for a job. He'd been in recovery now for almost 10 months. He'd been doing all the work he needed to do. I was seeing a change, what I saw. She was reporting seeing a change. And an opportunity came for him to get a job which required 25% travel. And she was like, no, we can't do that. The problem with that scenario is you never get to fully understand, had he completely changed? And I know even if I say that, I understand some of the people who've been betrayed are cringing, but at some point you have to get there where you can say, hey, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on you. Because if I'm not going to take a chance on you, then what kind of relationship are we going to have? So it's going to be that idea of how do you balance that? And in that circumstance, she finally agreed. She said, yes, you know what? He needs to find a job that does have some travel in it because that's what most of the jobs in his area are. And she's agreed to that. And so what we did, we put things in place when he was on the road to help her and her anxiety. He leaves with a full itinerary. This is where I'm going to be. This is when it's going to be. If anything ever changes, he texts her. He, gets on the phone with her. He got a camera that he puts in his room that's with his computer, so therefore she can see what's going on in that hotel room. So she is tracking him, if she wants to, the entire time he is there. And for her, just knowing, okay, I can do that was very comforting. Not that she needed to do it, and she didn't do it all the time, but she just knew I could just pop in at any moment, and I'm going to find him and know where he is. And he made that commitment that, yes, I'm going to be very transparent, and wherever I go, if I leave a meeting room, I'm letting you know I leave a meeting room. And that went on for several months until finally she was like, you know what? We didn't change from his perspective any of the parameters. We kept the boundaries up, but she didn't look into those boundaries as often. So again, understand what the fear is, but the idea is if you do not at some point start to make that movement to allow them out of the box, they're going to escape from that box. They are. At one point, they're going to jump out of it because they're going to have this frustration that I don't even get an opportunity to demonstrate I truly have made changes. So the fear of you wanting to jump back into the game and engaging with him or her, fully understandable. But remember, if you sit on the sidelines, you don't get to see, are there real true changes that are being made? You might be able to see some of them, but you're not going to see the intensity of what these people really have done in the way of transformation. Because especially when it comes to those who have betrayed, in their healing process, hopefully what they've come to understand is what they truly have been craving and chasing is emotional intimacy. You know, it wasn't about the sex. It was about the lack of the ability to emotionally connect and engage. And it comes from their part, not so much yours, it's their part. But now they understand, they say, yes, I need emotional engagement. And then they're not getting any at that point after they've been into that area of recovery. But they're not getting it because the other spouse is stuck and they don't want to jump back into the game. They don't want to leave the sideline. And that creates a whole nother issue that goes on. So we have to, again, and there's nothing black and white here. You know, you may think I'm talking in circles in a way, and it may even sound like I'm talking in circles, but there's nothing black and white. It's all gray. And it's all based on fear and hurt and pain. And that's why we need to be able to go step by step along the way. But, you know, let's take a moment, let's take a step back and say, you know, reconciliation is less likely going to ever occur if any of these following things are happening. Because many times, you know, a person who has done the betraying will come in and say, I don't understand. I'm doing everything I can possibly do. And yet, you know, I'm still no, there's no, everything still up in arms. Well, you know, that could be true, but in many other cases, it's not. For example, if a betrayer is still engaging in destructive sexual behaviors, reconciliation is not going to be coming anytime soon. If the betrayer is lying about other things, little things, you know, that thing that you look at and you say, what in the world? Why would you be lying about that? For example, a client who ordered these supplements because he wanted to lose weight and he hid it from her. Another client who was spending money on Amazon, just buying regular books, nothing that was outrageous or anything, but buying books and things like that, and having the packages delivered to the house next door because he thought he was going to get in trouble for spending money. The client who opened up another bank account because he wanted to save money to take her on a special vacation. You know what? Surprises are not a good thing right now, folks. So you guys have an idea that I want to surprise her or him? No, we can't be doing surprises at this point in time. But it's these things that the person who's been betrayed looks at and says, if you're lying about these little things, how do I know you're not lying about bigger things? And you can sit there and you can just, you know, spout out everything and anything about, no, that's not the case. I've been sober for so long. It's not going to mean anything. You know, the betrayer, another circumstance would be the betrayer who's not being completely transparent with things. You know, it's like, you know, they don't want to show you the phone. It's like, why do you have to keep looking at my phone? Why do you have to keep looking at my iPad? Why do you need to keep going through my history? I had a case, it was just a couple weeks ago, got a text from, a woman who's like, he turned off the software monitor and, and then turned it back on. And he said that it was okay because he was trying to find a website that dealt something with cars and it kept getting blocked. And, and he went in and he showed me the history for it. But still, and as I said to him, and he said to me, he goes, I don't think I did anything wrong. I go, yes, you did. Because that accountability software was part of the boundaries that your wife put together. And you agreed to those boundaries. Because you ran into a barrier that would not allow you to get to a site that was okay, it was an appropriate site, you on your own made the decision to take down that firewall. And you don't have that right at this time. All you had to do is call and say, hey, honey, I want to get on this website. Here it is. This is blocking me. Can I take it down? And if she says no, fine. When you get home, you say, can you give me your phone so I can go on there and look at it? Again, it's about emotional maturity as opposed to, I just want what I want now. And when you have that, that's going to say to the person who's been betrayed, I don't see change. I don't see change because right now what you're saying is it's more important for you to get on that website than it is for you to make me feel safe and secure. That's the message. And, when I mentioned to him, he was like, that's not what I wanted to deliver. I didn't want to deliver that message. That wasn't what it was about at all. Yeah, I know, but that's what you delivered. And that's all that matters. So therefore, the idea of if you're not completely transparent, we're probably going to struggle with trying to reconnect. If the betrayer allows his or her emotion to trump the betrayed, right, that too is going to continue to prevent reconnection because, again, the message that you're delivering is my feelings are more important than your feelings. And part of recovery, folks, is not just about how do we get rid of this destructive behavior, but how do we change other aspects of our lives that got us in that behavior to begin with? And part of that is being so inwardly focused. What I need, what I want versus what others need and want. It's about the idea that, learning how to emotionally engage and connect when connecting and engaging emotionally brings anxiety, but learning how to overcome that anxiety to be able to do it. So again, there's overall changes. And if you don't change in those areas, let me tell you, you could be sober for a long time. But if you don't change in other areas, that person that you hurt is always going to have a lot of doubt because they're going to sit here and say, you know what? I question things and you just scream at me. Well, that's what you used to do before. But yet you tell me that you're changed. Why should I believe you? And they have a great point. They have a great point. It's not just about ridding yourself of that behavior. It's about a total transformation. When you allow your emotions to trump your partner's, which can be done in several ways, it could be that the betrayer, the betrayed gets sad and depressed. And what happens? You then get sad and depressed. And therefore, what you're doing is sending a message that I'm not there for you again. See, you weren't there for them before. And you're just demonstrating once again, you're still not here. You're still not here. And you can sit there all you want and say, yeah, but I'm not looking at porn anymore. Or I'm off those dating sites. You're not there for me again. It's not just about that behavior. It's about so much more. You need to be able to demonstrate that you're making changes across the board. you have to, again, in order to even begin to think that we can try to come together, there has to be this demonstration that those who are betrayed can be safe and they can be trusted. And part of that is adhering to boundaries. And unfortunately, many people who are betrayed can't do a good job, don't do a good job with boundaries. Because what's happened is they've been, said, oh, I have restrictions, and they don't like those restrictions. I had a client who was complaining because he needed to go on a business trip to London. He said it was going to be a very crazy trip, and he wasn't going to have much in the way of downtime, and his wife wants to go because she doesn't trust him going on a business trip by himself, and she wants to go. And he's upset about it. And he told her, he goes, look, I'm not going to have any downtime. She's like, no, I'm fine. I'll just tour myself. No, this is not good. It's like she had boundaries and he's not listening to her and he's not adhering. So therefore, that distance continues to rip apart. And in her head, it's like, why don't you want me in London? What should I be worried about that could be in London? It's the guy who can't put his phone away. He comes home and he's still got the phone. He's still in his head there, or the woman who's still got the, versus I come in the door and I put the phone down. So therefore I can engage. You got to remember, you got to be engaging. How are you going to reconnect if you can't? Well, I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, if I start to engage, I'm going to get peppered with questions and it's just going to be constant. Yeah, right. That's called recovery. She is grieving. And part of grieving is talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. Now, I do admit that, you know what, if we're going into hour number 4, at some point you have to say, whoa, honey, look, I'm getting flooded here. I want to help you. I want to do this, but I have nothing left. And therefore we have to work with people to make sure that there are boundaries in that area too. There are some folks who can't keep the betrayed informed of when they're coming and going. It seems like a very simple thing. Hey, leaving the office on my way home. Oh, I'm going to stop somewhere for something. And they just can't get into that habit. So what the message they're communicating there? It is the idea that what you need is not that important to me. Because if it was so important to me, oh, you can guarantee I remember whenever I have movement, I'm sending out a text. That's not a really good message to deliver if you want to re-engage and reconnect. Because who wants to connect with somebody who's delivering the message of what you need isn't very important to me? Nobody. Again, as I said before, the idea of fear, the fear that the betrayed has about starting to reconnect is extremely valid. And, we can understand that because if you're going to let the betrayer back in, you're going to become very vulnerable. That's a very vulnerable move. Somebody hurt me so badly, and yet I'm going to let them back into my life. I mean, if you have betrayed someone, think about the significance of that and what that's like. How do I know it's not going to happen again? That's a really important point. But if we now jump to later in recovery, and you as the betrayed are still waiting for the answer of how do I know it won't happen again? Well, you may wait a long, long time for that. And that's why you got to come out off of the sidelines and get back in the game to find out the answer. Oh, I know. Well, I got it. It's frightening. I understand. But yet you're sitting here and you're saying, I want to make a commitment to my marriage. I want to make this work. Well, that's going to take a bit of risk. And that's the risk that you have to take. But you don't take that risk until that person who betrayed has gone beyond just saying, oh, I've gotten rid of this behavior. I think I've learned to manage it. But also they've made other changes too. And being able to connect, being able to be more outwardly focused. When you're starting to see all those things come together, that is when you can feel and say, all right, you know what? Let me take that chance. Let me take that chance. Because again, if you stand on the sideline, you can't determine if real change has been made. And as we wind down here today, it's really important. Both individuals have to agree that it's time to work on restoration. You can't drag the betrayed into reconnecting. I've seen it, and it doesn't work well. It just doesn't work well. You need to give them the time that they have to do their grieving. But once you do when you agree together, let's do this, then what we have to be doing is starting to feed each other the good stuff. You have to be looking more for the good things than the bad ones. And I'm not saying put your head in the sand and ignore things. I'm just saying we need to be able to praise when appropriate. We have to give attention. We need to be understanding. But most importantly, what we need is engagement, real engagement. Because basically what we're doing is we're working on a new relationship. As I've mentioned in previous shows, the old one didn't work. Okay? Can't go back to the old. We need to go somewhere new. And that means we're going to learn new patterns of connection and communication. You're going to understand how you each love differently. And you do. We have different ways of loving. There's a really good book, How We Love. Mylan and Kay Yerkovich. Great book. Everybody should read that book. And because it shows how different we are. And if you understand those differences, then that gives you, the opportunity to be able to make adjustments. Realize, guess what? You know what? Our expectations aren't always the same. What I expect from a wife, what you expect from a husband, what we expect from, just lovemaking, whatever it may be, we have to learn to adjust to one another. And you want to ultimately be building new experiences and new memories. All right, so that's what I got for you this week, Tammy. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Not turning it over to me, but yeah, we've got some questions, but I did want to comment on, first of all, I have not heard of that book, so I'm going to look that one up, but I was also thinking The Languages of Love. I'd read that one, and it's one of those things where, like, I don't need fancy roses and whatever, but like somebody doing the dishes for me, like, fantastic.
Oh, the 5 love languages?
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. But I thought, we approach love differently. We look at the languages of love differently.
Correct.
So I think understanding, the person we're in a relationship with and what, what's meaningful to them. I have people that I really do like, that need gifts and all of that. That's really meaningful for them, or whatever. So yes, I have, I think it's really important to do that. And you commented on the old relationship didn't work and we can't go back. And I thought, yes. And we don't even want that. I mean, that isn't really what we want back because it isn't safe. So we want to create something new and different. I've been in contact with a couple who he came to Seeking Integrity Los Angeles. They've done their work. She had a supportive, prodependent support therapist. The long story short is, I just emailed them yesterday because I was thinking about them, wanted to see how they're doing. And they both emailed back and they're like, we are eyes wide open, but we are forging ahead with this different relationship. And so they found a foundation. He's got recovery, and then they're building on that, but they aren't expecting it to go back to what they had. They understand that wasn't really working. So so I think it's really important to have, that clear message. And, I also was thinking, like the person going off to London, it is what is going to be safe for, for the betrayed partner. And, great, she can wander around London and whatever. So yeah, that resistance of, I won't have time for you, doesn't matter. Dr. Stan Tatkin, I think I've said this before on our podcast, he did a, it isn't about what I want, or even what about what you want, what's going to be best for our relationship. And, sometimes that's going to align with what I want, so to speak. And sometimes it's going to be like, my husband loves watching basketball and stuff on TV. And you know what, like, that's fine. There's sometimes I'm going like, I'm just going to do my puzzle, but I want to be in his vicinity, but I'm not going to just, kind of go on and on and on about, gosh, another game. Like, sometimes it's just okay that I'm in his space. I'm letting him be that. And that's good for our relationship. Is it great for me? Whatever, but like, I understand that that's important. That's just important to give him that space. He's a great guy. He does lots of, stuff for me. So this is my one little thing, in that moment that I can do. Just, it's just, that's an easy example, but the betrayal, it is so painful. But I thought it was a really great perspective of, if you don't ever test the waters, you're never going to know. And I've seen too many relationships. We end up with a lot of clients that come from a very, I'll call it, rigid system where it's a rigid community or a rigid family structure, whatever. And so the rebelling is acting out sexually. And so, you don't trust completely, but you do, go, okay, I'm going to be standing here on the pool side and I want to see what happens, and that's okay. And I like what you were talking about with the structure was created, and then the person, gets to see, and eventually I don't have to check on all of those things. I don't have to look at the camera. I don't have to do all those things. I can, and that person knows I can, but I'm not having to do that. Dr. Rob talks often about, it isn't that the partner wants to snoop. They're looking for it to be safe. They're actually hoping, that the betrayer isn't doing that, and that there is the safety. And so reframing it of, this person isn't, just looking to, go bad, you're bad, 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 bad. They're looking for, are you safe for me? And I thought, oops, jeepers, sorry. I thought, it's one of those where, both parties, are being vulnerable and reconnecting. It's terrifying, I'm sure, on both sides of it. And so I think it's really a sign of strength of the relationship if they're willing to, to engage in that way. And like you said, not pressuring either one, but just kind of going like, okay, how do we even, start this process? But, ultimately, we're hopeful. We want to have hope for, partners, for relationships, that, when there's a foundation, when there's, someone's willing to do, to do the work, that the partner starts seeing that it's, seeing those little small steps, and can see that person's changing. And like you said too, it isn't just, well, I'm not doing the acting out. It's I'm showing up, I'm accountable, I'm for my time. When I say I'm taking out the trash, I take out the trash. If I'm going to do the grocery shop, whatever it is, that I say what I do, and all of those real life things, start going, okay, I'm seeing changes in that, and I'm willing to put myself out there, just a little bit more. I mean, that's how you can grow a really meaningful new relationship, from that. And it's terrifying for both of them. So,
but there's many people who have betrayed, and they'll sit there and the spouse will be talking about what they're not seeing in the way of change. And they'll be so defensive talking about, I'm going to counseling, I'm in my group, I have a sponsor, I'm doing my journaling. They're checking off all those boxes of what they need to do from that kind of recovery standpoint. But yet, as I mentioned even before, she's talking about something and he have an outburst. And that reminds her, oh, well, this is the way you've always been. I can't have conversation with you about certain things. Instead, you just, get angry with me. So that makes her think, well, or he makes them think, well, what kind of change is really happening here? What if not, I don't see that kind of changing of the heart. You're telling me I got rid of a behavior. Well, guess what? You know what? If you get diagnosed with diabetes, so a lot of people can say, okay, I got to get away from sugar, and they stop eating things that are sweet. Okay, they change the behavior, but they haven't changed anything else about themselves. And maybe they don't need to, but in this case, this person needs other adjustments and changes so that we are addressing what is really at the core of their sexual addiction. We talked about this over the last couple of weeks when we were, that's a lovely tune.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
People always call me during these when I'm unmuted, so I apologize.
That's all right. No need to apologize. But we talked about this in several of the last episodes about understanding why, going deeper, part of here's the plug, new book, Going Deeper, How the Inner Child Impacts Your Sexual Addiction. That's important. And the reason it's important is because when I start to identify what that is, that shows me all of the changes I need to make in my life. And it also gives me a roadmap for being able to make those changes. So again, if you are the betrayer, understand there is more being expected of you than just, oh, I can now manage my addiction. That is not enough, because what it is, all you're telling him or her is, oh, I'm no longer doing that. All right. But I see all these other things. You're still hiding things at times. You're still, withdrawing at times. So I'm supposed to say you're okay because you tell me you're not doing this. Why should I believe you? What tells me I should go there? And it's a very valid point. And that's why, so therefore the expectations when it comes to recovery need to go beyond the scope of just managing the destructive behaviors. It has to be about the transformation of an individual. Because now what we're trying to do is create, as you mentioned before, Tammy, a relationship that have a different kind of bond to it. And to do that, you have to be looking outside of yourself and saying, ooh, what does my partner need and desire?
Well, and you hit the nail on the head too. It's like, this is just a symptom. When I talk to people about our program or whatever, we're talking about the acting out is a symptom, and you talked about, being emotionally detached and they're looking to numb out. They're looking to not deal with life and, on life's terms, so I talk often about it's a maladaptive coping mechanism. So yeah, just stopping that behavior doesn't address all those underlying issues. And kind of when you're talking, I was thinking that sounds like a dry drunk. So it's for an alcoholic who stops drinking but is just as mean and just as not nice and just as unsafe.
You know what else? What else goes on there with that? That's a great point you bring up. Is people who don't make other changes, we see them shift their addictions. Okay, now all of a sudden they're binging on Netflix all the time. Okay, or they're moving to food. Okay, and now with CBD,
yes,
you're seeing more and more people.
Cannabis is the new one, yeah.
Right, that's the new one. They're doing that.
Yeah.
So therefore, all they've done is they've replaced one, bad, destructive, behavior with another one. But they're still trying to zone out. They're still trying to escape. And that's what I mean. Unless you go down to figure out what am I trying to escape from, you will just run from one to another when it comes to an addiction.
Yes, and you will still not be connected in a healthy way to your loved ones. You will still not be present. You will have not made any of the changes to live in 12 step. We talk about living happy, joyous, and free. Are we running around woohoo all the time? No, but even in moments, I had one this morning. I had a very challenging situation, and I'm A, committed to going to my 12 step today, and B, I was using the serenity prayer and reminding myself that I have no control over anything outside of my actions and reactions. So I have coping tools in that very challenging situation, to help get me through. I didn't even think about, I didn't think about drinking. I didn't think about, going and buying a chocolate cake. I didn't think about any of those things. I thought, what's going to help me get back to serenity, and that's what I want and need. And so all of those things are possible, but only because, I've continued to do the work. And I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I keep doing the work, but
See,
like this morning wasn't my finest day, so.
No, but see, that tells me about the changing of a heart. That's a transformation. I'm not sitting here saying, so when does recovery end?
Yeah.
How many sessions do I have to go to? Can I get out of meetings like after about 6 months or a year? It's like, folks, this is something that doesn't go away. Again, we don't cure you, we help you manage it. And you can manage it extremely successfully. If you're mindful and you're doing what you're talking about, I'm spending some time, whether it's every day or during the week, being focused on what is going to bring me serenity, what is going to bring me peace, what is going to help my relationships grow and flourish, looking outward there. But you get some of these folks who just get so caught up in, well, this is the roadmap of recovery. And once I hit that point, then we're all good, right? No, you're not. Okay. That attitude is going to demonstrate once again somebody who's not making the changes that are truly needed. What they're doing is maybe sometimes just trying to appease people, or they're saying, yeah, I want to get rid of that, but other than that, the rest of my life is good. If any of us can sit there and say that, you know what, we're fools, because we can all always look for self-reflection to say, how can I change? How can I better myself? I mean, somebody did the quote long time ago, the day you stop learning is the day you die. Okay, so if you're going to stop learning about yourself now, then you know what? There was no more growth. And part of our life here is about evolving and trying to become, better.
I recall a situation where the husband said, I'm happy with who I've become. If she wants to change, she can do it. But it was kind of like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And there was no growth. That relationship ended. There was no place to go with that. So we've got some questions. I want to make sure we cover these too. So this person says, any guidance or advice on full disclosure process? My wife and I are waiting to get in with a couples therapist, hopefully someone who knows how to work directly with this, to talk about this, but I'd love to hear about a general outline of what that usually looks like. I'm not anticipating her being surprised by most of it, but there are at least 2 bombs that will absolutely be new info, and I'm trying to mentally prepare for it in advance.
Okay, so we want to know what we should be preparing for, right? With the new bombs that are coming.
Well, I think, overall, like what is a good disclosure process, and how do you support that?
Okay. A good disclosure process is one where the person who is betrayed is spending time working with a therapist to put together, okay, here is the story regarding my lack of sexual integrity. Okay. And you can begin a lot of times, well, this is me, all right? There's many therapists that will begin, okay, the day I met you, this was what was going on in my life, and here's what's happened. I go back a little bit to say, hey, this is when I first got introduced to porn. This is when I may have gotten sexually abused. This is what, and we build that whole story out. But you want to be putting down, the information that is necessary without giving graphic details to it. For the person who's been betrayed, they're going to be working with their therapist to come up with a list of questions. What are the things I need to know that perhaps haven't been told, or I feel like I've gotten multiple answers to? So therefore, they're going to create that list, and they're going to provide that list to the betrayer's counselor. And then he or she will go through that list to make sure those answers are incorporated in the disclosure. That is how we begin the process. That goes back and forth for about several weeks, sometimes about a month, to make sure we get it to a point where it's like, okay, this is good. You're not apologizing in a disclosure. You're not sitting there and talking about how much you love them. All you're doing, you're giving factual information. That's it for right now. That's all we're looking for, without graphic details. And then the disclosure is usually done with both therapists there together with the couple. They usually carve out a couple hours for it, depending upon the length of the betrayal and what has been involved in it. Sometimes we've carved out 3 hours for things like that. During the disclosure, the betrayed will read what he's written or she's written, and at that time we sit there and we give breaks in between. Do you have questions? Do you need a break? You want to, go off somewhere? Do you need to go talk to your counselor? Whatever it may be, because again, we want the person who's been betrayed to feel as comfortable as possible in a very uncomfortable situation. As far as the bombs are concerned, I guess she knows or he knows that there are bombs that are coming. There's nothing, that's what happens when we haven't shared before, when we let stuff leak out. And that's why it's really important that for her or him, that there is a counselor, their counselor there, because afterward they want to be able to go somewhere where they can sit and he can process what has happened and heard. And my guess is you're going to need those breaks in the disclosure once the bomb's been dropped, so that they can process somewhat.
Yeah, and I think the keys are do it with somebody who knows what they're doing. Make sure that there's support for each of you. That it's as Eddie was saying, that it's data and information, but it isn't gory graphic details. That it's shared in a way that where it brings in the information that your partner needs, but without adding further to the trauma. But having that support system in place, having the plan of like, here's how we're taking separate cars. That whole structure. And therapists do differently. Some of them, where the betrayer is invited into the room so that the partner has the opportunity to guide the whole process. There's so many different ways to do that. Look for somebody who knows what they're doing with this, because a good therapeutic disclosure really helps set the foundation, on which to build. And a bad, I call them vomit disclosures, where people just share stuff, really is, further traumatizing for partners. But that can be a really good foundation for moving forward. So the next question: is it fair to say you get double traumatized if unfaithful on top of infidelity, also lacks empathy and abandons me over and over and gets angry with me if I say anything about infidelity and lashes out? He is extremely unsafe, always has been.
I think that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
here is that it's not fair at all. The fact that, you know what, you've been betrayed, and now, he's the one who's saying, hey, you know what, I don't really care what's going on with you, and I'm going to continue to abandon you, and I'm going to get angry with you whenever you start bringing this up and lash out. That is unsafe. And that, to me, is someone who has not made real changes. So, I mean, there got to be something where, I'm not sure what the recovery process has been for him, or what it's been, but I think you got to get into front of a counselor together, somebody who knows this kind of work, especially the betrayal work, and set forth very clear boundaries that this is what we need moving forward. But then you're also going to have to put together consequences, because there's no point, you can't have boundaries if you don't have consequences. So you're going to have to give some very serious thought to, how am I going to navigate through this moving forward?
Well, and it's disheartening. He is
Yep.
extremely unsafe and always has been. I mean, there wasn't even, he was a safe at one point, and then this, addiction took over, and so that's one of those. I mean, everybody gets to choose. So I'm not, you get to pick, but I'm also thinking, it's not fair to you to always be in an unsafe relationship. So, some people, they aren't supposed to be together because there isn't safety. So I would really talk to trusted people and figure out what you can do. Now, there are people that have found safe boundaries within there were financial reasons, couldn't really leave, whatever. So are there things that you can do to create safety for yourself, knowing that you have an unsafe relationship, with this person? So. Okay, so the next question, as the betrayer, I agree with what you are saying. What do you suggest when the betrayed is on the phone when we are together, not engaging?
You talk to her or him about it. And what you do is, you don't just say, oh, how come you're on your phone? Or, you know what, you need to get off your phone. I want to be with you. What you need to do is express your emotions. You know what, I know we're trying to reconnect, or maybe you're not at that point, but I would like to spend some really good quality time with you. Do you think maybe you could put that phone aside for a little while so that we can connect? And if the answer you get is no, then you realize, okay, the process that we're dealing with, and again, it depends on where you are in this process. See, I have very limited information here to be able to give a precise answer, but the idea is, what you want to do is, you want to share your emotion. Her being on the phone makes you feel what? Okay, and don't say frustrated. Go deeper. It makes me feel lonely. It makes me feel abandoned. And just say that and see what kind of response you get from it.
And I was thinking, I agree with doing the sharing how you feel, but I think I would also be saying, not in the moment, but just say, I want to connect with you. And when you're on the phone, I feel, like you are disconnected. I would like to know, are you feeling that it is not safe? Because I'm thinking there's something going on for your partner who is going like, I just can't do that, or they're looking for distraction or whatever. So I think it would be, it's going to be a vulnerable spot, but is it something that you could say, I'd like to know what you're experiencing when I try to connect, and and you move towards your phone, what is that like for you? And if you can just take that in and hear that, you're going to get some really valuable data.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Tammy. That's what I call walking into the fire. You might get burnt, but believe me, it is very valuable to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, being connected is about, is being willing to walk into the fire.
Yeah,
So.
got a lot of questions today.
Yeah, that's great. So next one.
Yeah.
Boy, you hit the nail on the head for my relationship, exclamation point. Literally last night, I asked my husband why he still won't let me know him, know his recovery, know his struggles. His reply was, quote, I don't feel safe with your emotions. It's not a safe place for me. I need to take care of myself and keep safe from things that trigger me, and your emotions and insecure behaviors trigger me. So I can't engage these conversations with you, unquote. He's always kept me at arm's length, so there is no difference than before. Is this why I feel so unsafe with him? Apparently, he is no longer looking at porn or masturbating, and he is controlling his anger around me, but I still don't know him. I've asked him how I can make it safe for him, but he says he doesn't know. His therapist is not a CSAT and is keeping him on his side of the street and me on mine. Ooh, how can I stay healthy in this?
Wow. Well, first and foremost, if you feel like he's not looking at pornography and masturbating, he's learning how to control his behavior. Those are all good things, and we should be very positive and glad about that. However, the idea that it would be helpful for you to understand what's going on in his recovery. Now, my guess is he's going to say, well, whenever I bring up this subject and start talking about it, she finds everything wrong. There's nothing good. I'm still just a bad guy. I think trying to start by saying, look, you know what? I understand that you are afraid. Talk to him about his emotion, that you're fearful about my response to what you bringing things up, but I'd like you to try to give me another chance. I'd like you to try to see if we can sit and just give me a little of something and see how I react to it. And maybe that can be a stepping stone to being able to have more dialogue with him. The other thing is that, I think it's at some point going to be important for you to get in front of his therapist. And again, that's going to have to happen with him inviting you in so that, you can say, look, I do want to know more. I want to understand where he is. I want to learn about him. Make sure you're letting him know, I want to learn about you so that we can reconnect. It's going to be difficult for me to do that, to reconnect, if I don't understand more. So that's why I'm asking you for this. But can we start in just a small increment and see where it goes from there?
And so I wanted a couple of things. I picked up on your insecure behaviors trigger me. And I'm going to affirm you and say, it's not your insecure behaviors. It's you don't have safety. So this is not safe. This is not you just being insecure. This is you looking for safety, and there isn't any. And Dr. Rob often talks about the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment. So this old notion of you stay on your side of the street and I'll stay on mine. Like Eddie was just talking about, it's like, being willing to be a little vulnerable, but also supporting each other. And I also, shared, it's what's good for the relationship because we're better together than we are individually. That was the Stan Tatkin podcast that's in a nutshell, but he's got a lot more on that. But addiction recovery, I told you I'm going to a 12-step meeting today because we heal in community. And so being a little silo and, or rowing my own little boat, and that's all I'm going to do. And, I go to my therapist who, and I'm not saying anything, but doesn't have the letters behind their name, so hasn't had the education on this specifically, maybe doing a great work, but is probably not completely educated on this. I would invite you, if you haven't read Prodependence, please do so. And, please, offer to share it with this therapist as well, because it isn't that you aren't safe, you're looking for safety. Of course, he's not going to want to deal with your emotions. Like that's what the addiction was about, is I don't want to deal with all those unpleasant things, and that's great. But there are spots where you can, that there are opportunities to go, I just need a little, like Eddie was saying, I just need a little. And what is going to feel safe? Like, where can we connect, and start with a little, and then hopefully grow that. So, but lots of podcasts, on sex, love, and relationships that, that talk about this kind of stuff too. So. We've got a couple more and we're almost out of time. So
We are out of time.
yeah, so like we'll do this real fast. Thoughts on
Okay.
old and new. My spouse liked the old, and I'm resistant to the old. That's what he gets angry and lashes out because I was not working with him anymore in his dysfunction. So
I'm not quite sure I fully understand the question, but I'll say this, the fact that you should not be comfortable with the old. And again, that's what we've been talking about here. He needs to understand that, you know what, we're looking for something different. There's got to be a difference in our relationship. So I would continue down that route, but also maybe let him or her listen to this podcast, maybe get some more clarity about that.
yeah, the old didn't work. Of course, it worked for the
Right.
ad because I got to, do whatever I wanted and I could be selfish and everything else. But yeah,
Right.
I'm with you. And then this one really quickly, can you talk about the impact letter from the betrayed spouse after disclosure? I've seen several formats, and what do you think should be included?
What should be included is how you feel, your emotions, share the depth of your pain and what you went through. Um, you know, put it out there so that they can see that, this is what, because a lot of times what happens is person who's betrayed really can't understand the depth of the pain that the person who has been betrayed is feeling. So therefore, this is your opportunity to do that. And I know sometimes in format, this is where they'll also put boundaries in, saying these are things I'm going to need from you moving forward. Again, I would be working with a counselor in putting something like that together.
Yeah, and I would be, I when it's 20 pages long, that's too much. So if you
Mm.
can do it in a way where it's like it impacted me and here's a couple of examples or whatever, you don't need to, in my opinion, don't need to list every single item. It gets it gets overwhelming, but you can kind of categorize, like here's examples where you weren't available, that type of thing.
Right.
So you being able to pull that together, like Eddie said, work with a qualified therapist, they can help you manage that. So we're out of time. I'm gonna cut us off here. So thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Hope you'll join the series each Wednesday, but also you'll come back and see Eddie the third Wednesday of March.
Right.
Okay.
I'll be there. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, folks.
Bye-bye.